Hi, David.
Hey, Claude.
How are you doing?
So good.
We can only start an introduction when we put on a voice. We don't have an elevator pitch. We're like, just listen to us talk for 20 minutes and you'll understand why this
You
podcast is
understand.
called The Mindful Chaos.
Then
Yeah, this guy's a therapist, guys.
I just offended everyone.
You're gonna get
The
canceled.
what? The podcast that serial killers hate.
Chaotic.
Okay,
Yeah.
and cut.
This episode is not really an episode, but it's more of like a get to know who we are because I think David and I, it's really difficult for us to try to talk about ourselves seriously in the
Yes.
beginning of a podcast episode. And
We
every
never-
time we try to do that, we get really awkward.
No, we don't. So, how are we gonna actually introduce ourselves then?
Maybe we can talk about how we met because that's
Oh,
one of the
FAQ.
top searched questions on Google. No, some of the one of the
Yeah.
most asked one of the most asked question is how do you guys know each other? And I was like, I picked him off the street. Like,
Wow. Not offensive at all.
I saw him crying on the road one day,
Eating ice cream in the dark one day.
eating ice cream in the dark by a window. I was like, "Are you okay? Do you want to start a podcast? We can talk about your mental health."
Yes, thank you. Actually, so it started with a love story between.
That is so misleading, but okay, go on, please.
Why do you have to ruin it? That was a great intro. That was such a good opening
Okay, go ahead.
line. People will be like on the edge of their seats. Love
Oh
story.
my god. Yeah, okay, go.
It
How did
started.
we meet, David?
It started with me and someone called Ronald. No, I was really good friends with Ronald
In
and
high school.
in high school, who is Claudia's current husband. And so we were best friends there. We became friends up until someone entered the scene, and her name was Claudia.
And then now we're best friends, right? Right?
So now, now we do a podcast together.
now we're podcast hosts.
Yeah, now we're co-hosts.
Yeah, that was how we met. And when we first met, you were a counselor at a school in Hong Kong.
Oh, right. Oh, I didn't even know that was when we first met.
Wait, oh, I thought you meant I didn't even know I was a school counselor.
Oh, yeah, barely.
And then you decided to leave us all and move away to Australia to do your master's in clinical psych, to become a real therapist, have a real job, um, and decided to live there and stay there forever.
Well, maybe not forever. We'll see. We'll see. What were you doing at the time?
I was, ooh, that's a difficult one because I switch jobs quite a bit, like maybe once a year, once every 1 year or 2 years. So I don't even really remember which job I was at that time. I might have been at a magazine or I might have been with a hospitality group.
You were flying around a lot. That's all I
And
remember.
I was at a hospitality group.
Okay. Yep.
But no, throughout all of the different careers that I've had, it's all in marketing. So I just do
Yeah.
social media, digital marketing. But I minored in, I don't know if I've ever told you this actually. I minored in psychology, but my major in university is criminology.
Oh, okay. I remember Ron mentioning that in the very beginning, but then it just never came up again because you weren't even working remotely in that field.
Yeah, I know, and I wouldn't just randomly as a topic of discussion over dinner. Did you guys know?
By the
I'm
way,
really interested in the minds of a criminal.
oh shoot. Okay. I mean, we're gonna revisit that for sure. But okay. So, segue. That means like, what do you do now?
Now I'm still in digital marketing, in another different industry, but I recently completed a diploma in counseling in Hong Kong.
Woohoo!
Um, and I was trying to figure out, I think, after you kind of get settled into your career, you start to think about what's next.
Yeah.
Like, is this going to be my job forever?
Yeah.
And there were a lot of different options, like, further studies of MBA,
Yeah.
masters, and I was kind of flip-flopping between if I wanted to continue in business
Yeah.
or maybe I should relook at psychology. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that made me try to take this diploma course instead of a master's, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to do like a full-on master's, because that's
Yeah.
a
That's
huge
hard.
commitment.
Yeah.
Especially it's in a completely different field.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the deciding factors I wanted to go into this route was something that you said to me, I think maybe like
I
2 years
have
ago,
influence. Woohoo.
which was, I think we were talking about,
Yeah.
um, we were talking about this of whether I should look into the route of, doing
Yeah.
counseling or a therapist. And then you basically mentioned that you thought I would be a pretty good
Mm. For
therapist or a
context,
counselor.
I was depressed at the time, and Claudia and Ron would always take care of me mentally, but they were also worried about me. I found out, and so Claudia was a very good listener, and she was giving me like solid advice that I would give to clients at the time. And then I realized if this is her untrained, imagine her potential after some training. So it was, I think I had a good eye, and you turned out to do really well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a therapist, guys.
Not yet.
Not yet, but yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think we started this podcast too, because I think after I got into the counseling course, I was also thinking, okay, what's after that? Do I become
Mm,
a therapist, or how can I take my learnings and apply it somewhere else?
yeah,
And maybe mix it up with my digital marketing, social media
true.
skills.
Yeah, yeah,
And we were talking about our mental health idea, and we
yeah,
realized we had the same idea, which is so
yeah,
weird.
yeah, yeah. That's good. That's a big one behind the scenes, by the way. We're gonna surprise you at some point.
Yes, it's still a work in progress.
Yes, it is. It's good.
But we started off this podcast first. Sometimes I feel like things line up for a reason, right? So then I got into like criminology and then, psychology and then marketing and then psychology again.
Yeah.
And then just for us, like our paths to kind of cross. But then were you always in the psychology mental health path?
Yeah, mine is quite different from yours. I've been pretty boring for the past 7 years, I'd say. Like uni,
Not boring, consistent,
like
loyal.
sorry, reframe. Bachelor in psychology, master's in counseling, school counselor, master's in clinical psychology, and now clinical psychology registrar. So basically, the same path.
That's okay. You have honed your skill. But then, what's next, David? What is
I
next for
mean,
you?
recently a lot has been happening, so it's just thrown a lot of possibilities into my horizon. So acting has been new, modeling has been new, yeah, screenwriting and all that. So all of that's been pretty exciting, and I don't know what.
That is so cool.
And that's like it helps back to that's when we were talking, and you reminded me of your past life in
My
Canada.
past life.
What were you doing
Yeah,
again?
I was a I was a TV host for one of the Chinese stations in Toronto. Even though, you just got into acting and modeling and like script writing, you were doing something even throughout
Oh
your
yeah,
psychology life, right? That was
yeah.
outside of psychology.
Yeah, I mean, I was in like anti-human trafficking work. I was traveling around as a freelance videographer. I was writing some like novels on the side. So it was like I always had those ADHD kind of traits of like I can't just do one thing. Let me see how many things I can stack on my plate.
Yeah, let me cover all the different industries.
Yeah, but I like it. I think part of it is my upbringing. My parents were always very supportive of me trying new things, and I just don't
Mm,
really have a fear of failure when there's no huge consequence. And with
yeah,
hobbies, there's not really a consequence. If I suck at it, I suck at it. So I just try things.
it's so true. It's like our podcast. We're like, okay, let's just try it. If
Yeah,
people hate it, they hate it. Then we'll stop. But
yeah, and we're just two horrible human beings with no value, but that's okay.
I know, that's okay. Everyone has a podcast.
That's true.
We're trying to make a really heavy and serious topic into
Mhm.
something that's a little lighter and a bit more fun. And
Yeah,
like it doesn't mean that we're not taking it seriously, or we're not like providing all of these like stats and
yeah, yeah.
information and all of the research and stuff,
Oh,
but I mean, I love listening to some of those, but I'm like, you and me could never.
dude,
It's not
we,
even just that
we
it's
we would
like
never
not a
be
fun topic.
Huberman. Like I would never be Andrew Huberman or whatever. Like I can't.
Like all of those like academics, we could never.
Yeah, no, I can't
We
even
can't even
analyze.
introduce. We can't even introduce ourselves normally. Like, how do you expect
Never
us
say
to be
hi to each other
serious?
properly.
Yeah. Yeah. And, just because you're a therapist, I don't want to turn this into like a
Nah.
really serious, like, then it becomes like a therapy session,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, go pay for it. Don't listen to a podcast.
Exactly. But I think our main goal and like outcome of this podcast is to just try to showcase how like everyday trivial things can
Mm,
actually add up or affect your
yeah,
mental health. And people might not think that it has to do with it, but it,
yeah.
it actually does.
I think that destigmatizes the word mental health or the concept of mental health in psychology. It's not only when you have a mental health problem or an
Mm,
issue that you have to talk about mental health. It's just
yeah.
anything, and that's what I love about like your concept about this podcast is not just talking about it in a fun and chaotic way, but also saying it in a way that relates to daily life rather than, oh, I'm feeling depressed now, I have to think about or talk about mental health.
Yeah. And I think it's good to kind of like have a therapist point of view as well. Cause then sometimes I think one of the other stigmas is that people get worried about, what do you talk about in therapy? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
how serious is it? Like, I like, or it's like kind of embarrassing, or
yeah.
I don't want to cry in therapy all the time. But, the conversations don't always have to go there. I mean, it definitely does get there sometimes, but
Usually.
it usually does end up with someone crying.
I hope you get your money's worth and cry.
Um, but yeah, and you can also see that, a therapist is also just a person. They can also have other interests outside of being a
They
therapist.
could be a weird person too.
They could be a weird person. They could also have problems themselves.
Yes, you'll find out.
I think being in this like mental health space has also just given me a different kind of purpose in life. No,
Ooh,
but it's very different than just doing like a marketing job, right? Like in the mental health space, you interact with other people, like you're providing more of like a service, even
yeah,
though in marketing it's more business driven, but then in mental health it's more people driven. So
yeah.
I think it's really different, but
Mm.
really satisfying to be able to, be in both actually.
Yeah, that's true. And I think we're similar people in that those are where our interests align and
Mm,
overlap. I don't think it is the case with everyone. Like, not every marketer we meet will love people, or not everyone
yeah,
we meet who loves people would be into marketing and arts and creative media. So
yeah.
I definitely think it's a lovely place to be because I find so many overlaps in them because marketing is about
Mm,
people and persuasion and their
yeah,
psychology of consumer psychology, and then in psychology we actually also have to market ourselves and market different things. So there's a lot of like healthy overlaps that are very interesting and fun to work with, and I think that's
yeah,
what
for
we're
sure.
doing now, like in this podcast or in other ventures. Like, this is peak interest for us, peak passion.
I think that's like basically us.
Yeah, this is us.
But we do hope that
Mm,
this little snippet can let you guys understand us a little bit more, and
yeah,
the meaning behind the podcast, even though sometimes we're really not serious,
yeah,
but our intentions are very serious.
yeah, yeah. And even if we joke about some things, it doesn't mean we don't care about it. I think it just speaks to our stupid sense of humor sometimes. But sometimes when you can't fix something, the most you can do is laugh about it. So ha ha ha, depression. Ha ha.